Our Focus Africa today is going to be a very extra special one as we focus on what appears to be a world protest wave. Let's explore the causes, demands, and responses. As we witness a surge of protests across various countries, it's clear that citizens worldwide are voicing their frustrations and demanding change on a range of issues, from economic hardship and political corruption to social justice and human rights. And so today we delve into the driving forces behind these global demonstrations and the key demands being made and how government are responding to these widespread movements and demands.
To provide us with a comprehensive analysis, we have two distinguished guests. Our correspondent, Afua Hagan, will be joining us, our international correspondent. She'll be sharing insight from the ground, detailing how these protests are unfolding in different regions and also the common threads connecting them. Also, Makomborero Haruzivishe, a political analyst who will help us understand the broader implications of these movements, including potential impacts on international relationships and domestic policies. But before we go to our two distinguished guests, one of them who works for us, Afua, let's also move now to Ojota, where we have our correspondent, that is Igbalani Omani, who is going to be giving us an update on the situation in Ojota currently. Ni, good morning. Good to have you here on Breakfast Extra. Do tell us what exactly the situation is in Ojota now.
Good morning, Mazino. Good morning, Judith. So we decided to choose this spot. This is Oroshoki Expressway, so we can give you an overview of what Ojota looks like right now. It's day 10, and we understand that yesterday was a day chosen by the organizers to organize a tribute ceremony and a candlelight procession, which terminated at about 4 p.m. yesterday at ShopRite. But they didn't allow them extend or get to this place, which is Ojota, or even allows that to converge to pay or celebrate, or in honor of the people who had fallen. They call them fallen heroes. But let's focus on what is happening here. This is Ojota. This was where the protest started: day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, until around day 6, when the numbers started dwindling. And of course, we're hearing issues about communications, and organizers were citing violence as a reason for not to converge here anymore. We can see very little police presence here, unlike what we've had earlier when the protest started, and nothing is going on here. Everyone is going about their normal duties, and we don't know if it's quite early. It's still early in the day, if I can put it that way, but I really do not think anything else will happen, because we know that even 2 days ago, some women tried converging on Alausa, Ikeja. They also were not really granted the permission to stay there. So I don't think protest is allowed, pardon me. And noting that the Lagos State government came out a few days ago to say that protest has ended in Lagos. That seems to be like they had some sort of arrangement, if I can put it that way. But the organizers have stated yesterday that their demands are still there for the president to meet up with, but for now they are not converging. And we can confirm right now at Ojota that nothing is happening, just a minimum of security presence.
All right. Well, many thanks. Like you said, it's quite early in the day, so hopefully we'll come back to you as the day unfolds to see whether or not there will be any type of convergence or demonstration for day 10 of the hashtag End Bad Governance. But many thanks again. We appreciate you for doing this with us.
Thank you, Hey. Now let's move back to our correspondents who we have online, who will be joining us to talk about the global situation with the protests that has been rocking across the world. Afua, you've been following the protests in various countries closely. Can you please provide us with what you think, an overview of the protests and the impact on relationships, especially perhaps maybe international relationship?
Absolutely. I mean, this widespread protest movement that we're seeing from protests in Venezuela, Bangladesh, where you are in Nigeria, and here in the United Kingdom, we have to remember that this is a huge election year. More than 2 billion people around the world are eligible to vote in elections. And this is the hugest year that we've seen for elections, I think, ever. And it doesn't, it's not surprising that protests are coinciding in this election year. People are hungry for change. If you look at the End Bad Governance protests in Nigeria, that's about ending bad governance. It's all there in the name. If you look at the protests in Bangladesh, that's about an old government rule that made it really easy for people who have previously worked in government to have those government jobs, people who have done things for the country, who perhaps served in the army, and young people weren't able to get those good government jobs that have great pay. In Venezuela, for instance, the protests were after an election that lots of people feel have been stolen. Here in the United Kingdom, we have a different issue. We have had a government for the past 14 years that has thrived on polarization and division, and that has given credence and given oxygen to the birth of the far right, which means that when we had a terrible stabbing attack a couple of weeks ago here in the United Kingdom, the far right jumped on that, blamed Muslims, asylum seekers, none of which were involved in that incident, but took it as an opportunity to riot. So it's all about disquiet, it's all about unrest, it's about poverty, it's about economic challenges that people are facing around the world, and they've decided to take to the streets to protest.
And let me ask you, Makomborero, about, just from a political standpoint, about this movement. Afia said that it reveals, the discontent that the people have with the government. What do you say to that in terms of the current international political climate and societal tensions that we're seeing? Makomborero, we can't seem to hear you. You might be...
muted.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Thank you.
Oh, all right. That's great. I think with what we are seeing across the world, one striking cause for all these problems are the economic foundations on which our nation stands. And this is staggered by, it depends with whatever part of the world we are or region we are. But if we go, for example, to Africa, the situation is different from, like in Southern America or in Europe. But if I'm to go to Africa, where there are many protests happening right now, you'll find that the economic foundations upon which our nation stands are exclusive. We'll find that there are a few who are getting richer and richer, and the majority which are becoming poorer and more poorer. And this is due to reasons. For example, if we check that why current governments are failing to adapt, and it's because they can't understand that by 2030, Africa, about 60% of the continent's population will be under the age of 25 years. And, 42% of the world's youth will be Africans. So this is a new generation that is demanding a space, a new generation that is not demanding something more special, but it's just, the promise that we were told that democracy is about the views of the majority and also respecting the views of the minority. But then the views of the majority are no longer respected. Go to Kenya, you find they come up with a financial bill, a new finance bill, and which makes them to increase taxes. But they're doing it in an environment where there's high corruption, where the rich are living in opulence. Go to, for example, a country like Nigeria, one of the most, gifted in terms of population and resources and human capital. But people are living in poverty. People, what the government policies are not making sense to the ordinary person. Go to countries like Zimbabwe, they have had diamonds, one of the biggest deposits of diamonds, gold, and all other minerals, name it. But we see every day, we see headlines of corruption, the gold mafia scandal. We see corruption scandals headlining the day. And this shows that the majority of the people who happen to be young people are excluded. They are not benefiting. Democracy is not making sense to them. Policies are not making sense to them. It shows that they are more like economic aliens in their own country. They are like treated as foreigners, as second-class citizens economically, as second-class citizens when it comes to also decision-making. They are not included in the construct of policy and decision-making. And their demographics, which is now the majority, and democracy is about the majority views also while it's protecting the minority. The majority views of the young people are not considered. Check in Bangladesh, the quota system in terms of employment, it was about the older generation, the veterans, but the students who are young, who are innovative, who have, are in the most productive part of their lives, intellectually and also physically, they are being excluded. That's what is causing this, protest, and this is behind the demands of this protest. And we are seeing, even in terms of the response, because what we can say is this protest by young people and demands for inclusion and demands for progressive reforms looking into the future. This is a pushback more,
Yeah, I mean, Makomborero, one thing you stated there was how the people who are clamoring for change are of the younger generation and they are being removed or they feel removed or not included in this situation of governance. But let me come to you, Afua. From your perspective, what are some of the most striking similarities and differences in how, these protests are being organized across, different countries and carried out across this different continent regions as well?
I think what's really pertinent about this situation is the use of social media, whether wrongly or rightly. Social media has played a huge part in why these protests have taken place in the first place and how they are organized. In Bangladesh, there was actually a crackdown on the internet and mobile service providers because those were the mediums that were being used to organize. And again, yes, it is mostly young people using hashtags to get people in place. Here in the UK, we have seen how social media has played into this in a really negative way, because the attack that happened in Southport, the stabbing of those three, of a group of girls that resulted in 3 of them dying, was falsely written on social media that was perpetrated by someone who was Muslim, who was a asylum seeker, who had arrived in the UK illegally on a boat. There was even a picture circulated of a man who had nothing to do with this attack. Now, once that was on social media, it went viral and it was picked up by several agitators who then spread that. More people picked up on it, the right wing picked up on it, and then they used that as an excuse to organize themselves to riot. We had locations put out last week on Wednesday of where the right wing were targeting, and that was spread through social media, mostly through Telegram. So social media has played a huge part in all these protests, in the organizing of protesters. Even today, where I am in South London, there's going to be an anti-racist, anti-fascist, anti-Semitism, and a protest against Islamophobia, and that has been organized on social media. So social media has played a huge part in all of these protests, whether instigating people to riot or organizing people to protest against the riot.
All right, Makomborero, like you've just heard Afua talking about social media, and of course we all know who the biggest users are for social media, the youth. In Africa here, we've seen a very big movement where the youth have been championing the movements for whether it's Kenya, Uganda, or Nigeria. Does this signify a change in the dynamics of politics as we go forward? Would we see more involvement of the youth in politics, do you think?
Yes, we are going to see more involvement of youth in politics because the future is young. We're going to see more involvement of youth in politics because it's a whole generation. We should take it as a negotiation, between the outgoing generation and the incoming generation. When I'm saying outgoing, I mean those that have been in charge of the world socio-economic and political order. And those that are incoming are young people who are coming in with fresh ideas, with fresh demands, who are intolerant to corruption, who are intolerant to exclusive politics, who are intolerant to segregation, who are intolerant to things like war. We have seen protests in America, in the West, against the genocide in Palestine. We have seen a protest against corruption in Kenya, and you must see it not just as a protest against corruption in Kenya, but it's a protest against some of the world economic institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the Brethren Woods institutions, because they are the ones that are making that finance bill, which we see young people revolting against in Kenya. We should look also at countries like in Bangladesh, where you find like it's there in Asia, countries like India, of course with the Bangladesh regime, but young people are coming to challenge those internationally set up like kind of relations on whereby the elites are, working in cause to protect certain interests, in which the majority do not benefit. So young people are coming to challenge all those things. These are things that have been set up for decades, for a whole generation. So it's a new generation on the push, a new generation on the move, registering their presence.
Right. Well, I mean, Makomborero, you're right. One thing is certain, that the global protest wave is a powerful testament of the collective will of not just the people, but the younger generation to want to see change in their time quicker and sooner.
Thank you very much, Afua. Thank you very much, Makomborero.